Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we're going to be talking about fertility with a doctor who is making miracles happen every single day. That's just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, when you go into the practice of medicine, there's a lot of areas you can specialize in, but I can't think of a more rewarding career to go into than fertility. Joining me right now, the founder and medical director of Fertility Specialists of Texas, Dr. Jerald GoldStein. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, I think about your gift, the gift that you give to couples. What does that feel like? I mean, couples that have been struggling to get pregnant for years, and then they come to you, and you're able, through the grace of God, to give them a child. What does that feel like?
It feels very good. It's amazing when couples come to see you how hopeless they feel, and they've oftentimes maybe have been seeing their OB/GYN, going through a lot of different treatments, and oftentimes they don't feel like they're ever going to be parents. And so a lot of times, when you see a couple, you're able to get an idea of how what the chances are of them being able to get pregnant. And I always tell them, I'm like, we're just trying to create the opportunity, right? I mean, there's more than just us that are making, that make it happen, but it's like we just want to create the opportunity. And so oftentimes when you do that, that makes a difference, and patients get pregnant.
And this becomes very personal, because I know often you get to give the good news, or sometimes you're giving the news that no, it didn't happen this time. What are those phone calls like for you?
Well, obviously the best ones are when you're given the good news, because it's like that they're one step closer to holding a baby. And so that's very.
Are there tears on the phone? Or?
Well, I mean, there are tears. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of times from patients that you're talking to, in particular. I would have to say that the most special part of or one of the things that I really enjoy doing is when you're doing like an ultrasound, which we frequently do, like at 7 weeks pregnant, and a lot of times you take the regular measurements and then you put and then you start measuring the heart rate, and so the patient doesn't necessarily know that that's what I'm getting ready to do, but as soon as they hear the heartbeat, and you look at the mom, and she's in a different place.
Wow.
She knows that she is. It's like that, and then oftentimes she is very, emotional, because it's like, it's an amazing, process from that time to, actually when she's holding the baby.
Yeah, and I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but Dr. Goldstein's eyes are getting moist, and I love that. It never gets old, does it?
No, it doesn't ever get old, because it's like everybody is individually have, there are different issues. There's always different stories, and so in your, it's everybody has a different story to tell of how they finally, hopefully, succeeded in going through the process and having a baby.
Outstanding. Well, we found a wonderful video on your website. Let's go ahead and roll that now.
experienced within that year 3 pregnancies and then 3 miscarriages. So obviously we had a lot of questions. I know for me it was just heartbreaking. It was like every time you got your hopes up and you're so excited and you want to tell people and you do tell people, and then come to find out you miscarry, and then you have to tell those people it's just kind of like this big snowball effect of misery really through the whole process. And then just not knowing why it's happening is even worse, because you have no control over the situation. It's a letdown, and it's really tough, especially when you see other people around you getting pregnant and having successful pregnancies. Of course, you're happy for those people, but then it just has that sting to it. It's just wanting something that you just can't acquire at that time.
Yeah, I think it was. It's harder because my body didn't go through anything. I don't know what she's feeling, and there's it's a different emotional attachment for her. So just not knowing how to be there for her other than be there and work through it and try to figure it out. And some of the similar things. It was hard for me too, because we told our oldest, and then she got excited, and then just explaining that life process to her, it was hard and emotional as well. But yeah, I think just the biggest thing was just trying to be there for her, and it's a little different not knowing.
Just pure anxiety, and I tried not to. I tried to take it day by day, and every time I felt a symptom or something like that, I was like, okay, that to me, I was like, it's all still good. I probably took more than needed pregnancy tests just to reassure myself. I came into the doctor's office. I came in here extra so they could monitor things. Any little thing, any spotting or any headache or anything like that reminded me of the miscarriages. It was frightening. So I will say, but once we hit that second trimester part, that was really when I felt I could relax and breathe and just enjoy every morning. I made a commitment to just enjoy it, and yeah, it was it. In the end, I think we'd do it 1,000,000 times over because it's all worth it. There is a lot of stress and anxiety and fear, but it's quickly replaced.
Wow, that is so cool. And you guys just celebrated 15 years. Do you ever get a chance to see the patient or the child years later?
Well, so actually we, I don't remember how many years ago when we had our last, we were having yearly baby parties. Mm-hmm. And that's I still remember, and I tell Tessa this, when we were, this is at our main office at Baylor Frisco, and it's like that, my wife showed up and was asking me what all these people were doing standing around me. She was like, what? I've never seen anything like this. And then someone said, well, they're here to see you. And she's like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? But the thing is, but it is pretty amazing because that is pay, basically. You know what I mean? I mean, that is because really that's making a difference. And I mean, it's that you are, it's very fulfilling. And so it makes it worth it for us. And it's also the whole team. It's not just the doctor. It's the whole team that really makes a difference to kind of give someone the encouragement to continue on and to talk to them and hold their hand through the process. That's what we try to do.
That is so inspiring. Well, it seems like if you had chosen a different area of medicine, it wouldn't be nearly as fulfilling as this.
Which is why I went into what we're doing now, because I'm like, it's amazing. It really is. Cool. It's amazing.
Well, tell me about COVID-19, the pandemic. How did it impact your business?
Well, it's impacted our business. One is because we used to see patients in our office for their initial visit, and we would sit and talk to them for 30, 45 minutes, and now we do that over Zoom. So it actually has been, there's nothing positive that's come out of COVID, but I think it's definitely transformed medicine from the standpoint that now there's going to be a lot more telemedicine.
Sure.
And so then after we do that, then they come to our office for an ultrasound and lab test, and so that I think it's made it more convenient, because when you take off, when you go see the doctor,
Sure.
you're taking off a whole afternoon, and so now that doesn't really happen. And oftentimes a husband can be one place, the wife is someone else. We still see ourselves, face to face. So that's been very, very positive. I think that but in other ways it has made it where, for example, we used to, we used to spend a lot more time face to face, and we're not doing that as much as we used to. I think that in terms of the number of people that are going through the process, is actually we've seen no difference. In fact, we've seen more to a certain extent. Some people that are really maybe have thought about what life means to them, or what's most important in terms of their life, and so
Sure.
we're definitely seeing. We have not really seen an effect from that, from that perspective.
Well, I know you and I were talking before the show that stress can sometimes hurt a couple's ability to get pregnant. How does a couple know when it's time to see you guys?
Well, so I think that for example, if your periods, for example, are irregular, then that's a tip off that you'd want to see someone before, earlier than if you just said, okay, we're typically going to wait a year, which is really the official, recommendations are that you wait a year if you're under 35 and 6 months if you're over 35. But for example, if you know that you've had a prior history of a pelvic infection, if you know that you've had like endometriosis, if you know that you've had, if your husband has had like a vasectomy reversal, for example, then
Right.
you probably want to see someone sooner than that.
Well, and I know medicine is just speeding light years ahead. I'm confident that you're able to do things today that 50 years ago would be impossible.
Well, I think we have. I mean, I know that now it's very common that, for example, when patients go through fertility treatment, for example, if they're going through in vitro fertilization, that we're actually able to do testing for the embryo prior to us transferring the embryo. So before, for example, women would have like an amniocentesis at 18 weeks, really. So now we're able to do that testing actually before we transfer the embryo into the uterus. So that's helped us, for example, reduce the risk of miscarriages.
Yes.
Okay. So that's been very, very, that's very helpful. And it's also allowed it to, people think that, for example, that you're going to have twins or triplets, but we frequently only transfer one embryo. So, we've been able to reduce the risk of multiples, which is, which is also a source of stress.
Sure.
So those things have been very, that's been very, very helpful.
We've got a couple of pictures we want to show, and I would ask for you to kind of narrate it for us. What are we looking at?
Well, this is a couple that came to see me that had a baby. We've actually started having like a calendar where our couples that have gone through fertility treatment in the past year, that they can nominate their child to be like in a calendar, which kind of highlights their story, so to speak. So this is me, them coming in and me holding the baby.
That's very cool.
And this is actually from a couple, an employee of ours that actually went through treatment and ended up having they went through IVF, and they had embryos made, and then instead of going through the whole process again, we just thawed another embryo, transferred in the uterus, so they didn't have to go through the part of taking medications and stuff like that a second time.
Tell me, what makes Fertility Specialists of Texas different?
Well, I think that one is that we are very personalized. We try to spend a lot of time with our patients, and not just have like one protocol or one treatment for everybody. Okay. The other thing is that we have a good laboratory. So we have like a very good team of embryologists that work with embryos and things like that are very highly trained and use advanced equipment. And I would say the last thing is that we it's a team approach. And I mean, we know that when someone, it's not just it's the physician's important, but it's from the time that someone calls on the phone to they make the appointment to who it talks to them about financially, what type of impact it may have, to when they, when they hopefully when they leave when they're pregnant, that sort of global perspective or global approach that we really try to emphasize and say what we do and do what we say. And I think that that for the most part that people do, if you do that, then they do well, and we've made a difference.
That's beautiful. That's a great way to end the show. We're going to go ahead and put your website up so people can get in touch. FertilityTexas.com is the website. Dr. GoldStein, thank you for the miracles that you're creating every single day.
Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah.
And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.